The battle begins inside Aurel's frozen cathedral. As the Frostmaiden hovers before the party, Bon Bon wastes no time making the first move. Raising his enchanted pistol, he fires the opening shot, a burst of holy light streaking across the icy chamber. Without giving Aurel a chance to recover, Bon Bon reaches for his enchanted javelin and hurls it with all his strength. Lightning erupts around the weapon as it tears through the air. The crackling spear slams into Aurel's chest, exploding with divine power. Ice shards burst outward as the Frostmaiden recoils from the devastating hit. Aurel cries out in pain. The opening attack lands true. The Frostmaiden is wounded, and the battle has truly begun. Wounded by the party's opening assault, Aurel abandons her mortal form. Her body twists and expands into the shape of a monstrous snowy owl, an ancient avatar of endless winter. Towering over the heroes, she unleashes a deafening cry that echoes through the frozen cathedral. Scree! The chilling screech shakes the chamber, carrying with it the fury of a goddess determined to crush those who dare challenge her. As the others hold the line, Savin quickly changes tactics. Knowing what's coming, he darts behind his companions and begins weaving powerful defensive magic. Arcane runes blaze to life as spectral blades circle around him, accompanied by the haunting melody of his blade song. Rather than rushing forward, Savin braces himself, preparing to withstand whatever devastating attack Aurel unleashes next. Aurel locks onto Savin. Her glowing blue eyes burn with fury as she whirls toward him, feathers crackling with freezing magic. Towering over the wizard, she lets out an angry hiss. In an instant, Aurel lashes out with frost-covered talons, each strike carrying the power of magical ice. Savin reacts immediately. His blade song surges as glowing arcane runes form a shimmering shield between him and the Frostmaiden. The razor-sharp claws slam into the magical barrier, sending shards of ice exploding through the air, but the shield holds. Refusing to let up, Aurel attacks again with another devastating swipe. This time, Savin meets the strike head-on. Bracing himself, he catches the blow with steel and sheer determination, standing his ground against the wrath of the Frostmaiden as the battle rages on. With Aurel focused on Savin, the rest of the party seizes the opportunity. Murdoch shoulders his heavy crossbow and takes careful aim. Whispering a prayer, he releases a holy bolt infused with divine power. The glowing projectile streaks across the chamber and slams into the Frostmaiden, erupting with radiant light against her frozen feathers. Before Aurel can recover, Gideon charges into the fray. Shield raised and sword blazing with holy energy, he drives forward without fear. With a mighty swing empowered by divine smite, his blade crashes into the Frostmaiden, forcing another cry of pain from the ancient goddess. Then Osborne steps forward, his hands crackling with arcane energy. Gathering raw magical power, he unleashes a massive fireball. The roaring sphere of flame explodes against Aurel's icy form, fire and frost colliding in a violent blast that engulfs the Owl of Winter as the heroes press their relentless assault. Aurel retaliates with terrifying speed. Her massive frost-covered talons lash out in a relentless flurry, striking at Murdoch from every angle. The armored cleric braces behind his shield as blow after blow crashes against it, the force of each impact sending ice and feathers exploding through the frozen chamber. Then, in a blur of snow and wings, the Frostmaiden vanishes. Before anyone can react, she reappears beside Osborne. With a savage slash, her enchanted talons tear across the wizard, drawing blood before he can fully raise his defenses. The attack is swift, brutal, and a reminder that Aurel is far more dangerous than an ordinary foe. As the party regroups, the Frostmaiden's voice suddenly echoes inside their minds. You think you can change anything, now? I have already won. Her words are filled with cold certainty, an attempt to shatter the hero's resolve as the battle reaches its most desperate moments. The party refuses to back down. Bon Bon charges straight into the Frostmaiden, his flaming greatsword blazing with holy power. With a mighty swing, he carves into Aurel's frozen form, divine energy erupting from the strike. Shrang! The powerful smite tears through the Owl of Winter, forcing her back once again. Seeing the opening, Savin raises his hand and unleashes a volley of enchanted blades. Four glowing holy daggers streak through the air like shooting stars, each one driving toward Auril with deadly precision. The Frostmaiden recoils, but she is far from defeated. Spreading her massive wings, Auril gathers the fury of the endless tundra. Ice and snow spiral around her as freezing magic swells to a terrifying intensity. With a sweeping motion, she unleashes an ice storm. Shards of razor-sharp ice rain across the battlefield. The party braces against the blizzard as freezing winds roar through the cathedral, threatening to overwhelm them beneath the Frostmaiden's relentless assault. The battle has taken its toll, but Murdoch refuses to let his allies fall. Calling upon divine power, he places his hands over Osborne's wounded arms. Golden healing magic flows through the wizard, mending the deep wounds left by Auril's savage talons. As Osborne recovers, Gideon studies the battle. He realizes that every radiant strike has cut deeper than the others. Trusting his instincts, the paladin surges forward once more. His sword blazes with holy light as he channels another powerful divine smite. Divine smite. The radiant explosion tears through the Frostmaiden's owl form. Unable to withstand the holy power any longer, the monstrous creature collapses, its icy body melting into a dark, slushy puddle across the frozen floor. For a brief moment, the chamber falls silent. But Osborne narrows his eyes, refusing to celebrate. She's not gone. The wizard knows this battle is far from over. Auril still has another form waiting to emerge. Without warning, an overwhelming wave of freezing magic erupts across the chamber. A massive cone of cold engulfs the entire party, blasting them with razor-sharp ice and sub-zero winds. Gideon raises his shield, Bon Bon grits his teeth, Savin braces behind his blades, Murdoch struggles to stay upright, and Osborne desperately channels protective magic as the relentless blizzard crashes over them. Even through the storm, Bon Bon spots something hidden within the swirling ice. We found her. The heroes have located Auril once again, but the Frostmaiden's devastating magic has reminded them that every second of this battle could be their last. The Frostmaiden reveals her true form once again. Now a living embodiment of ice itself, Auril raises both hands as freezing magic pours from her fingertips. The air crystallizes around her, and a massive spear of solid ice rapidly forms, its jagged edges sharp enough to pierce stone. With a swift motion, Auril hurls the enormous ice spike across the cathedral. Whoosh! The frozen projectile tears through the air like a speeding glacier, leaving a trail of frost in its wake as it races toward the heroes with devastating force. The gigantic ice spike tears across the chamber, racing straight toward the party with unstoppable force. Everyone braces for impact as the frozen spear closes the distance in an instant. Osborne is the first to realize where it's headed. His eyes widen in horror. Before he can dodge or finish another spell, the massive shard of enchanted ice slams directly into him. The impact is devastating. The ice spike hurls Osborne backward, exploding into countless razor-sharp fragments as it tears through his robes and sends him crashing across the frozen floor. His staff flies from his grasp, his hat is ripped away, and the wizard is left battered by the Frostmaiden's merciless attack. The massive ice spike leaves Osborne barely conscious. He struggles onto his hands and knees, gasping for breath as his staff lies just out of reach. Every movement is a battle against the pain. Through blurred vision, he forces himself to look up at the battlefield. Even as Osborne fights to stay awake, Auril remains poised in the distance, gathering more freezing magic while the rest of the party holds the line between her and their fallen companion. Osborne tries to push himself back to his feet, but his strength finally gives out. The wizard collapses face first onto the frozen floor, motionless beside his staff. For the first time since the battle began, one of the party's most powerful spellcasters is completely out of the fight, leaving the others to face the Frostmaiden without him. Seeing Osborne collapse fills Bon Bon with rage. Osborne! No! With a furious roar, the paladin charges straight at the Frostmaiden, his flaming greatsword blazing brighter than ever. Aurel barely has time to react before Bon Bon leaps into the air and brings the massive blade crashing down in a devastating overhead strike. The burning steel slams into her icy form, sending shards of enchanted ice flying across the cathedral. Without pausing for a heartbeat, Bon Bon pivots into a second attack. His greatsword sweeps in a wide, flaming arc, carving through Aurel with unstoppable force. Fire and divine power erupt from the impact as the furious paladin pours every ounce of his strength into the assault, determined to make the Frostmaiden pay for what she did to his friend. Bon Bon's relentless assault leaves Aurel staggered, but the heroes don't give her a chance to recover. Without missing a beat, Gideon circles behind the Frostmaiden, trapping her between the two paladins. Realizing she's surrounded, Aurel turns in desperation, but it's already too late. Gideon slams forward with his shield. The crushing blow smashes into Aurel's icy body, driving her backward and throwing her completely off balance. Cracks spread across her frozen form as shards of enchanted ice explode into the air. With the Frostmaiden reeling, Gideon draws his sword and channels radiant power through the blade. Smite. The holy strike pierces deep into Aurel's chest, erupting with brilliant divine energy. Caught between Bon Bon's relentless fury and Gideon's devastating combo, the Frostmaiden is driven back once again as the party continues to press their advantage. Murdoch rushes to Osborne's side, refusing to let his friend die. Kneeling beside the fallen wizard, he calls upon divine power as warm golden light pours from his hands. The holy magic begins mending Osborne's wounds, pulling him back from the brink while the battle rages around them. At the same time, Bon Bon and Gideon keep Aurel occupied, forcing the Frostmaiden to defend herself instead of finishing the wounded wizard. Seeing an opening, Savin extends his hand and unleashes another volley of enchanted blades. Four glowing holy daggers streak through the air and slam into Aurel one after another, each strike bursting with radiant energy against her frozen body. As the healing magic takes hold, Osborne suddenly gasps. His eyes snap open. The wizard has returned to the fight. Though still battered and exhausted, he's alive, and the party's greatest spellcaster is once again ready to stand against the Frostmaiden. Osborne refuses to stay down. Still lying on the frozen floor, he reaches out and pulls his battered wizard's hat back onto his head. Taking a steadying breath, he grips his staff and slowly forces himself onto one knee. Across the chamber, Bon Bon and Gideon continue hammering away at the Frostmaiden, keeping her attention fixed on them while buying Osborne the precious seconds he needs. The wizard plants his staff firmly against the stone floor and gathers every ounce of arcane power he has left. A blazing sphere of fire begins to grow above the staff, its heat cutting through the freezing air of the cathedral. Osborne raises the staff toward Aurel and shouts with everything he has left. Fireball! The flames roar to life as the battered wizard rejoins the battle, determined to make the Frostmaiden pay. Osborne pours every ounce of his remaining strength into the spell. The blazing fireball surges away from his staff, but instead of exploding immediately, it continues to grow. The flames spiral outward into a massive inferno, surrounding Aurel in a roaring vortex of fire. The burning sphere expands until it fills nearly half the cathedral. Still it grows. The walls glow orange as the fire swells, consuming almost the entire chamber. Yet through careful control and years of mastery, Osborne shapes the spell around his companions, allowing the flames to wash past them without harm while trapping the Frostmaiden at the center of the inferno. Aurel screams as the overwhelming heat engulfs her. Aye. For a brief moment, the frozen cathedral is transformed into a blazing furnace, and the Frostmaiden is swallowed by Osborne's most powerful fireball yet. When the smoke and mist fades, a drying pool of water is all that's left. The party takes a moment to catch their breath as Murdoch channels another surge of holy magic into Osborne, easing the wizard's wounds after the devastating blast. Osborne grimaces, forcing a tired smile. I think we gotta do that again. The heroes know exactly what he means. They've destroyed another of Aurel's forms, but the battle is far from over. Scanning the ruined cathedral, Gideon and Bon Bon spot a long stone staircase leading toward the rooftops above. Without wasting another second, the party heads for the stairs. Together they climb into the storm, knowing the Frostmaiden is waiting for them at the top, and that the next stage of the battle is about to begin. The party emerges onto the fortress rooftop, where the freezing winds howl beneath a sky churning with dark storm clouds. Before them lies the final battlefield. High above the tower, a gigantic frost rock circles through the air, its crystal blue feathers glistening with ice as it lets out a deafening screech that echoes across the mountains. The heroes tighten their grip on their weapons, knowing the Frostmaiden has taken to the skies. At the center of the rooftop, a glowing crystal pulses with magical energy beside a massive nest of broken timbers and frozen debris. The final stage of the battle has begun, and this time, there will be a monster in the sky to deal with. The frost rock dives toward the rooftop with a thunderous beat of its enormous wings. As the icy feathers slam together, a deadly storm of razor-sharp ice shards erupts outward, sweeping across the battlefield. The heroes brace themselves as the frozen barrage tears toward them from every direction. Before they can recover, the glowing crystal at the center of the rooftop pulses with magical energy. 3 brilliant beams of ice erupt from the crystal, each one locking onto a different member of the party. The freezing blasts streak across the rooftop, forcing the heroes to raise their shields and endure yet another relentless assault. The Frostmaiden isn't fighting alone. The enchanted crystal is attacking alongside her, turning the entire rooftop into a deadly battlefield. The heroes waste no time taking the fight to the skies. Bon Bon and Gideon sprint across the rooftop, closing the distance as the enormous frost rock swoops overhead. In perfect unison, both paladins hurl enchanted javelins at the diving beast, the spears cutting through the storm toward their airborne target. At the same time, Murdoch plants his feet and raises his heavy crossbow. Whispering a prayer, he releases a holy bolt infused with radiant power. The glowing projectile streaks across the battlefield and slams toward the frost rock, adding another burst of divine light to the party's coordinated assault as they struggle to bring the monstrous creature out of the sky. While Bon Bon, Gideon, and Murdoch keep the frost rock occupied, Osborne turns his attention to the glowing crystal powering the battlefield. Arcane energy gathers around his hand before he unleashes a volley of brilliant purple magic missiles. The enchanted bolts streak unerringly across the rooftop, striking the crystal in rapid succession. Each impact sends cracks of violet energy racing across its icy surface. Seeing the crystal begin to weaken, Savin follows up immediately. With a flick of his hand, 4 glowing holy daggers materialize and rocket toward the crystal. One after another, the radiant blades slam into the shimmering ice, filling the rooftop with flashes of golden light. The crystal shudders under the combined assault. The heroes know that if they can destroy it, they'll strip the Frostmaiden of one of her greatest advantages. The frost rock suddenly folds its massive wings and plummets toward Gideon in a devastating dive. The enormous beast crashes down in front of the paladin, sending ice and snow exploding across the rooftop as it tries to overwhelm him with its sheer size. Without hesitation, the rock snaps its massive beak forward. Gideon braces behind his shield just as the razor-sharp beak slams into it. The impact echoes across the battlements, but the paladin refuses to give an inch. The frost rock attacks again. This time its enormous talons rake toward Gideon, claws large enough to tear through steel. Gideon pivots behind his shield, absorbing the savage strike while keeping his footing. Alone against the towering beast, Gideon holds the line, buying the rest of the party precious seconds to continue their assault. The glowing crystal suddenly surges with power. 5 brilliant beams of crackling energy erupt from its surface, fanning out across the rooftop as they streak directly toward the party. With nowhere to run, the heroes brace for the devastating blast. Savin reacts instantly. Throwing himself in front of his companions, he plants his feet and thrusts out his hand, determined to stop the attack before it reaches the rest of the party. At the last possible moment, glowing arcane runes burst into existence. A shimmering magical shield materializes in front of Savin just as the 5 beams slam into it. The barrage explodes against the barrier in a shower of purple light, the energy scattering harmlessly away instead of striking the heroes. Once again, Sovin's quick thinking saves the party, denying the crystal one of its deadliest attacks. Bon Bon seizes the opening. Launching into the air with his massive flaming greatsword raised high, he brings it crashing down onto the giant frost rock in a devastating two-handed strike. The blazing blade bites deep into the creature's icy plumage. Before the rock can recover, Bon Bon drives the sword forward again, burying the burning weapon into its chest. Flames erupt across the wound as the monster lets out a deafening screech, staggering under the relentless assault. Gideon rushes in before the frost rock can recover, driving forward with a crushing shield slam that smashes the creature's head into the stone. As the stunned beast reels, Gideon follows with a powerful sword slash, pouring the last of his divine strength into a final radiant smite. Holy smite! Murdoch charges forward, gripping his heavy holy mace in both hands before bringing it crashing into the giant frost rock with a thunderous, divine-infused strike. The crushing blow caves through feathers and ice alike, leaving the massive beast visibly battered. Bleeding from multiple wounds, the giant frost rock lets out one final enraged screech before beating its enormous wings and climbing back into the stormdark sky. Sovin hurls 4 radiant holy daggers into the crystal, blasting away large chunks of enchanted ice and leaving deep cracks spreading across its surface. Seeing the opening, Osborne follows with a volley of crackling magic missiles. The glowing bolts hammer into the weakened crystal, shattering off more massive fragments as the artifact begins to look dangerously unstable. The wounded giant frost rock lashes out in desperation, its massive beak crashing through Bon Bon's shoulder armor and drawing blood. Before he can break free, the beast's razor-sharp talons tear into his arm, piercing the damaged plate and locking onto him with crushing force. With a furious screech, the giant frost rock beats its enormous wings and climbs into the storm, carrying Bon Bon high above the battlefield. The giant frost rock carries Bon Bon far beyond the castle walls, climbing high above the frozen wilderness below. With one final screech, the monster releases its grip. Bon Bon plummets toward the icy ground, reaching out in panic as the wind tears past him. Then, with perfect timing, radiant golden wings burst from his back. He levels out with a grin. Just kidding. Bon Bon rockets through the storm like a golden comet, wings blazing as he drives his flaming greatsword straight into the giant frost rock. The strike tears completely through the monster, carrying Bon Bon past it in a single unstoppable charge before he pulls up high above the battlefield. The giant frost rock hangs motionless for a heartbeat. Then its wings go limp. The colossal beast tumbles from the sky, defeated at last. Gideon and Murdoch rush to the battlements just in time to see Bon Bon still fighting high above the frozen valley. I wasn't worried. Confident Bon Bon can finish the giant frost rock, the 2 warriors turn away and charge toward the crystal, determined to destroy it before it can unleash another attack. With the frost rock defeated and the crystal already weakened, Gideon and Murdoch unleash their final blows together. Gideon's sword crashes into the enchanted ice as Murdoch's holy mace slams into the opposite side. The crystal explodes into thousands of glittering shards, its corrupt magic finally shattered once and for all. The destruction of the crystal sends violent tremors through the fortress, and chunks of stone begin crashing down around the party. Realizing the castle is collapsing, everyone sprints toward the stairway leading back down. Then Sovin suddenly skids to a stop. Wait. He rushes to the frost rock's massive nest, grinning as he scoops up a glittering cache of treasure. Hidden within the giant frost rock's massive nest, the party discovers a forgotten hoard. A massive iron-bound chest, locked. A beautifully enchanted magical harp. A frost-forged magic sword etched with glowing runes. And one enormous egg, still warm. With the castle collapsing around them, the party races to the edge of the battlements. Bon Bon grins. Jump in. The water's fine. Sovin glances over the edge. Think there's anti-magic wards anywhere? The only way out. is down. So they jump. And they fall.